Andrew Rice, welcome. Thank you so much. I interview a lot of scientists. I don't interview a lot of golf pros, but we're talking about the world of golf and the world of meteorology. And you have found a way to combine these two worlds by creating a formula. So I want to start by asking you a little bit about how this came to be. Were you discovering as you were out playing that the golf ball was moving differently in different types of weather?
Emily, for sure. It's and I'll say this for the record. You've interviewed a lot of scientists. I am in no way, shape, or form a scientist. I'm a lowly golf professional. I do work with a golf company called Ping, and I'm a consultant to the engineering department there. And so those really smart scientists have helped me a tremendous amount over the years in just get a better to help golfers get a better understanding as to how the weather, the wind, the temperature is going to influence the shots they're about to play. And I always say to my students, it's an outdoor game. We need to know better how to interpret this wind, this temperature, this elevation, this humidity, and factor all of that into our planning of the shot.
Yeah, you guys are almost like pilots in the way that weather is impacting every aspect of the game. So let's break it down and talk about the different types of weather and how it impacts the ball. Starting with what the formula was about, which was temperature. So hot weather,
Yes.
cold weather, what's happening in different ways?
Okay, so let's do it this way. We'll go temperature, we'll go humidity, and then we'll go the big one, wind. Okay, temperature, quite a simple formula. Most golfers, and I'll say this, all too many, in particular male golfers, have an overly inflated number as to what they believe, how far they think they hit the golf ball. Okay, so let's just assume that ladies don't really play that game. They just want the real number, whereas guys are like, no, it's got to be a big number. But let's just assume we have accurate numbers, and most of those numbers are curated in the 70 to 80 degree range. Okay, and all of the information I'm going to share with you is very much what I term to be a rule of thumb, Emily. Okay, it's not going to be exactly perfect, but it really is good enough for the vast majority of golfers out there to make better informed decisions as to what club to hit and how to play a particular shot. So temperature, for every 10 degrees that we go above, let's call it 75. So if we're playing at 85, every club in your bag is going to carry 2 yards longer. Okay. Same goes for every 10 degrees down from 75, 2 yards less. So if you're playing golf at 45 degrees, which I'm sure there are many people playing at 45 degrees today, although I would prefer to be at home. But let's say we're playing at 45 degrees, that's 30 less. That's 3 times 2, which is each club is going to be 6 yards shorter based on the temperature. And I know a lot of golfers have asked me, Andrew, does it help to keep my golf balls inside and to warm them up before I go out there and keep them in my pocket? Really, by the time we introduce that ball to the atmosphere, that temperature changes very quickly. And so it may have a very subtle influence on one shot, but that ball's sitting out in the fairway waiting for you to, hopefully in the fairway, waiting for you to arrive. And by the time you arrive, that ball is at ambient temperature.
Okay, so the different clubs, do it's 2 yards no matter what?
2 yards. Yeah, which was quite surprising to me. It's 2 yards per 10 degrees for all your clubs. So your driver is going to go 2 yards shorter if you're playing at 65, and your pitching wedge is going to go 2 yards shorter if you're playing at 65.
All right, so that's not really that. I mean, 2 yards is not really that big of a difference. You can't blame the weather, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, true. Yes, you can't blame the temperature. You cannot blame the temperature. Certainly.
Now, humidity. What about humidity? Because
humidity is an
that's
interesting
harder
one.
to measure.
it's harder to measure, and it has far less effect. This is just kind of a fun little one. It's not something that people need to grab their pen and start writing information down. But I know that many of us, we like to watch baseball in the summer, and we hear the commentators, oh, it's a hot, humid night at the ballpark tonight. The ball's not flying. Well, here's the interesting fact. The particles that go into making up humid air are less dense than the particles that go into making up regular, everyday air. And the golf ball will actually travel marginally further in humid conditions than non-humid conditions. And judging by the look on your face, you knew that already, but I would expect nothing less, Emily.
Yeah, well, I knew that, of course, but it's hard for, I think, people to grasp because humid air does feel so thick and so
Thicker.
heavy.
Yes.
So it's hard to imagine that it is less dense, but you're absolutely right. All right. So, did you have to do a lot of testing to find out this information? How was the process done? Did you put on your white lab coat and step into a lab?
Pretty much, I'm the guy who gets curious about something like that. And then I go, okay, I know some smart people who have access to all these models, all these algorithms, most notably my friends over at Ping, the engineers, the scientists there. And I say, guys, what's the deal there? Is it possible for this to happen? They're like, yeah, funny you should ask. We have that. We've done that research project, and they've got so much data going back 50, 60 years that they've tested. Anything you can pretty much think of, they have tested. And so it really is tremendous for me as a golf coach to be A, curious about this stuff, but B, to have somebody who can help me with my understanding.
So they didn't have to go out and create conditions or just wait for a bad weather day. This is all information they already had.
They have tracked so many millions of shots, and they record the weather, they record the temperature, they record the wind direction. And so they can run it through their model and go, oh, if the humidity is up this amount, for example, I think the number they gave to me was a 250-yard driver on a humid day will go 1.2 yards further. Kind of a cool discussion topic more than anything else. Not going to move anybody's needle.
Right, exactly. Okay, so the one that we keep coming back to, that you keep kind of hinting at, is wind. So obviously, we talk about really windy golf courses and how just somebody's game is going to change completely. Can you tell me how it's changed? What have you learned in that aspect?
And Emily, I'll say this. This is something that has piqued my interest for a number of years now. And you mentioned a formula at the start. Yeah, there's a very simple formula for temperature. 10 degrees up, 2 yards per club, 10 degrees down, 2 yards per club. For wind, I would say I'm currently on my 5th formula. As I try to whittle it down, and I try to make each one better than the last. And I've worked with one of the engineers at Ping in particular quite a lot on this one. He's done most of the heavy lifting. But let's talk headwinds and let's talk tailwinds. Okay. And let's also understand that this and I know this. A wind is almost never constant. It's ever changing. And that refers to the velocity of the wind, and the point that it's coming from is always varying. And that variation, let's just keep in mind as golfers, that variation can increase your dispersion by up to 30%. And so you'll have a 30% greater area that you'll hit regular shots in just because of those slight variations in the wind. Okay. But we cannot really account for those variations. And so we're going to say, let's talk headwinds to start with. And we're going to go, I like for golfers to think in terms of 5, 10, 15, or 20. If it's more than 20, stay home. Okay. Stay home. Don't play. Don't play. My experience is also this, and I've never had a meteorologist come to one of my golf schools, but I would love that. But airline pilots do a good job in gauging the velocity of the wind. Everybody else is 99% of the time higher than the actual wind. Okay, so I have a wind meter that I use, and that's kind of taught me and helped me to understand, this wind right here is about 7 miles an hour. But let's just think very basically, 5, 10, 15, or 20. If you're not sure how much wind is blowing, weather app, okay, check your weather app and for where you are, and it's going to be pretty close. Okay, it's never going to be too far above or too far below. The findings are as follows. Current findings, okay? As we hone in and try to get something as accurate as we can whilst keeping it simple. 5, 10, 15, or 20, if you've got that mph of wind blowing directly in your face, regardless of the club you're hitting, that is going to be the yards difference that your ball will travel. So you've got an 8-iron into a 20 mph wind straight at you. Add 20 yards. It's going to play 20 yards longer than it would typically play. If you've got a 5 mph wind blowing in your face and you're hitting a driver, your ball is going to go 5 yards less than before.
Okay. Well, that's
Okay.
easy to remember. Does the opposite work if you've got a tailwind?
No.
Oh.
And that's why we're going to talk. And no, it doesn't work opposite. That would be nice and neat, and we could package that up and sell it.
Yeah.
But I think first thing I want is for golfers to understand 5, 10, 15, or 20. That's the yards. Whatever club you're using is going to play longer into those headwinds. Okay? Flip it around. Tailwinds. Wind is helping us now. And a lot of golfers think, well, if I took 2 extra clubs going into the wind, I'll take 2 less clubs going downwind. And that is not necessarily the case. We've got a little divider that happens here. 5 mph downwind is going to help your golf ball travel 5 yards longer. Okay? 10, 15, and 20, it's about half of that. So 10 mph tailwind, it would help you about 5 yards. 20 mph tailwind would help you about 10 yards. And I'm referring to a typical golfer on a 70 to 75 degree day at sea level, carry numbers. We've got to put all those kind of qualifying statements in there. But I think it's a good thing to understand. So anyone listening in, headwinds, 5, 10, 15, or 20. That is the yards that the wind is going to influence the shot you're about to play regardless of the club. Tailwinds, 5 yards, 5 mph, tailwind, 5 yards of help. 10, 15, and 20 is half of that number of help.
Are your ping engineers looking into why this is, or does nobody care? They're just going with it.
Here's why. Think of it this way. You've got 100-mile-an-hour wind coming in your face, okay? And you've got a plane taking off at 100 miles an hour. There's 200 miles an hour of force, okay? Mm-hmm. Plane is taking off at 100 miles an hour with that 100-mile-an-hour downwind. There's 0 miles an hour of force. That plane it would never take off in that direction, but it's taking off with 0 force. Okay. And so when the ball, which has velocity, is traveling downwind, let's say a 20-mile-an-hour wind at 100-mile-an-hour ball speed, there's only 80 mph of force acting on that ball. But if we go into the wind, 20 miles, there's 120. Can you see how it's not even? Okay, there's a lot more force acting on the golf ball in a headwind than there is when that ball takes off on a tailwind. And so the effect, the help that we get from a tailwind is typically less than the hurt we would experience going into it. My statement is this, and this is still true. Golfers will typically underestimate the effect of a headwind whilst overestimating the effect of a tailwind. And I think if all golfers, if you just want to keep it super simple and come away with something from this discussion, be it that.
Okay. So do you you said you're traveling around, you're playing with like a handheld anemometer. Is that the case?
Yes,
And
correct.
you're checking direction and speed. Do you recommend that?
If someone really wants to geek out, if I was coaching someone who wanted to play for a living, a young professional, got to get one. Got to get one. In my opinion, Emily, I think there's been such great information put out by people pertaining to green reading. Yet, if you look at the statistics, when a player putts a golf ball from 15 feet or longer, they rarely make the putt. Golfers would actually benefit, and I think they would avoid greater catastrophe by being able to read and interpret the wind versus read and interpret the green. I think it would be more stroke saving to them to know the wind than the green.
Okay. Any other variables? What about like moisture of the greens or elevation? What kind of role are they playing?
Elevation, and I was thinking about that. You know, we've got elevation. That is not something that's in your purvey, which is kind of like atmosphere, right? You know, elevation is elevation. And my experience is this: certainly as we get higher, as we play golf at higher elevations, the ball goes further, but it's not going to be the same amount for everybody. It all depends on how you strike your golf ball, how much spin, what elevation you hit your golf ball at. For example, if I'm fitting somebody and they play golf in Denver, I need to make sure that with their driver, they have in the range of a 3,000 RPM spin rate when they hit their golf ball. That would be optimal at Denver altitude. At sea level, that same golfer might need a spin rate of 2,300. Because when that air is so thin, that the revolution of the golf ball is something that creates that little lift, that little tail behind the golf ball that helps keep the ball aloft. And so it needs more spin at higher altitudes. So low spin golfers wouldn't experience as much gain playing at altitude as high spin golfers would.
This reminds me a little bit of like Moneyball, where it's like a
Yes,
game of
yes.
statistics.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's, you know, and part of my job, what I strive to do is come up with like a simple formula that applies to as many people as possible and is easy to remember. I think the engineers at Ping, that's why they kind of give this stuff to me and they say, Andrew, just say something, make it simple. You know, they're good at coming up with the perfect information, the great accurate data. And I always view my job as I'm the one who's got to make it actionable and something people can remember.
So you're Brad Pitt, is what you're saying.
Oh, he does that in Moneyball. Oh, I wish I could say that. I wish I'd take that just for that reason, even if he didn't look as good as he does.
All right, but in all this formula and all this preparation, it kind of feels like anybody can be a good golfer. Is there still something though about the game and like just walking onto a golf course that you know nothing about and not really knowing the weather conditions and just going for it, that kind of unexpected, like this could be a terrible day or it could be an amazing day and I don't know?
I think that's the mystical nature of golf, Emily, is we never really know, you know, and it can be a negative on one hand, but I view my job as a golf coach and a golf instructor. I want to share hope. I want golfers to feel like when they wake up and they step onto that golf course, today could be the day. And if I can help equip them with just a little bit better information and help them to be able to handle, whoa, it's a really windy day. Well, I know my stuff. Then they can deal with those kind of challenges better.
Helps them at least get through the mental game, right? Gain a little confidence in themselves. All right, so one more question. If you were to pick your perfect weather day for playing, what would your perfect weather conditions be?
Oh, perfect weather would be, I'm going to go with sea level, low humidity, 78 degrees, and not a breath of wind. no clouds, no wind. Just let's make it easy.
I
Golf
was
is
gonna
hard
say, are
enough
you
as
going
it
for
is.
comfort or are you going for a good game?
Oh, I'm looking for ease. I'm looking for ease. I think every golfer would take that. It's a hard game. It's a challenging game, and you know, I know that someone in your family designs golf courses, and so golfers, we don't want it to be too easy, but if the weather can help us out and make it a little easier, fantastic. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, I would take that. I like that.
Nice. I like that day too. Cool. All right. Well, Andrew Rice, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. This was very fun and enlightening, and maybe gave hope to some golfers that feel hopeless, especially this time of year.
Especially at this time of the year, they're dreaming about that 78-degree day and being able to get out and play. And I know many golfers are hitting indoors, or they're hitting into a net or in their basement. Hang in there. That good weather is coming.